No matter what Riot does, people are going to complain about the meta. And instead of doing that in this video, I'm going to teach you how to beat the meta. And I'm going to teach you how to beat any meta, whether it's 5 months from now or 5 years from now. Regardless of what patch happens, regardless of what agents are strong, I'm going to teach you what I would do as a coach if I was approaching a new meta and how I would try to find an advantage over my opponents with the agent comps. After Master Santiago, Yoru got some well-deserved nerfs and Sky got some rather surprising buffs. And this has led most of the future meta discussions to focus around Neon, Sky, and Waylay being the core trio that everybody should be playing. Waylay was already very strong. She was already a large part of the meta, didn't have any changes. Sky was already decent and got some pretty sizable buffs into a role that was heavily nerfed coming into the season. And then Neon was the most dominant agent at the most recent Masters. Now, we'll talk about Neon in a second because I think that there's going to be a bit of a trap here for teams that don't have a Danby on their team. But Waylay and Sky make a lot of sense as sort of the next pivot of the meta. If you have an insane Neon player, you should definitely be playing Neon on as many maps as you can. Same thing with Waylay, same thing with Sky. If you have great players on agents that are definitely strong, you should absolutely use that to your advantage. However, it doesn't mean that that is the most optimal way to play the game, because in a game like Valorant, there are always counters to things that are happening. But none of this is going to matter if everybody just pivots to playing a sentinel-less double duelist comp. And so that is where the big edge lies, in my opinion. Because if everybody is playing this comp, and probably this is going to be, with a Viper and an Omen or an Astra, this is likely going to be one of the most common fives that you see. If everybody's playing this and there's no sentinels, then this comp is going to be strong, because it's going to feel good if you're good at this comp to just steamroll teams that are playing no sentinel. You're going to be able to dive them on site. They're not going to be able to stop you, and it's going to feel really good and powerful. And one of the things that's probably going to happen if this does become the most prevalent comp on most of the maps in the pool is we're just going to see a lot of mirror matches where this comp steamrolls this comp. So what's going to end up happening is you're going to see a lot of, retake Valorant. You're going to see maybe a lot of brawling early on where the defense is going to maybe gamble stack and just try to fight the attackers. And what's going to end up happening is that whatever team is just better individually and sort of coordinating their team fights is going to look better. And that feedback cycle may even just take over the game, where everybody's just playing this comp, and the teams that have the best shooters or the best Neon or the best Waylay are just going to look good at the game. And a lot of times that's what happens, is everybody just copies the same type of comp, and then whichever team has the best strats or the best execute or the best anti-strat for their opponents is going to win the game. And that surface level of interaction is where the discussion ends. And people are just going to be like, oh, well, we're just in a Neon Waylay Sky meta, and it is what it is, and this team is good because their players are insane, right? And so when you're thinking about the meta, it's great to try and validate what your hypothesis is about where the meta is going to go. And one of the best places that you can do that is looking at Tier 2. Now, most of the Tier 2 leagues started before the patch and the map change happened. And so you can't look at some of the ones that started in February and January. But the North American League started after the patch and after the map pool changes, so we can look there as well. And you can see that, sure enough, Viper, Neon, Omen, Waylay, and Sky are the 5 most played agents. And so this makes a lot of sense. This is like the surface level take of what is going to be good. Now, this is where things get interesting, because if we know what people are going to be playing on a lot of the maps, we can potentially attack this comp directly. Maybe we just play the comp if we think that we're going to be good at it and all of our players are comfortable in the agents. But if we think that we can get an extra edge by playing something a little different, and we have players that can play the agents that we want to play, then that is a great way to approach attacking the meta. So this is where I want to talk about Yoru again, because I think something that people are not talking about enough is that Yoru was instrumental in the death of the Sentinel class. I know that a lot of people like to point to Cypher getting nerfed and Vice getting nerfed and Killjoy already being kind of bad, and what the hell is Deadlock, and Sage is for noobs and E-daters. So the Sentinel class is bad. But the reality is that the Sentinel class is actually not that bad. Yes, they did get nerfed in the offseason, but the main reason that playing a Sentinel felt so bad is Yoru. Yoru has several pieces of utility that are really just the best counters possible to Sentinels in this game. You've got the clone that can trigger all of the auto detect trips in the game, or trigger the sonic sensors, or trigger the wall for Vice. So clone just straight up counters all sentinels, at least to some extent. And then on top of that, Yoru has a teleport, which means that Yoru can walk into a sentinel's trap and then trigger it and then teleport out safely. Or if Yoru wants to get past the sentinel trap without triggering it and, get past a flank hold or just ignore any sort of utility holding a choke point, Yoru can do that as well. And so the fact that Yoru was being played in like 80% of all comps in the game, I think is actually the main reason that playing agents like Vice and Cypher and Killjoy and all these other Sentinels felt so bad. And so now, if we're going into a meta with no Yoru, because everybody has pivoted to this comp, there's some interesting stuff that can happen. Because if you look at this comp, this is not a good comp against Sentinels. Neon might be the worst duelist in the game at dealing with Sentinels. Skye doesn't have any utility to break Sentinel setups. Waylay can, use her recall and dash to get past Sentinel setups, but a huge part of Waylay's playstyle is to go in, recall back, and kind of be used as a drone, and then for the team to come through the choke point afterwards. But if Waylay doesn't trigger the Sentinel setup by dashing over it, or even if she does, the Sentinel setup is still going to stall the choke point. And notoriously against agents like Viper and Astra, who want to do a lot of lurking and, put up a smoke and walk out behind it, Sentinels are great against that style of play because their utility just holds the space. So if we go to a meta where this is good, I think we're also going to go to a meta where Sentinels are also good. And because of that, if you are the one that sets the meta, or if you are the one that does the thing that counters what is currently good, you always have an advantage. Look at Paper X's Yoru Phoenix comp against the Genji Viper comp on Haven. Look at the Genji Viper comp against the Breach Neon comp on Haven. Look at Fnatic's Lotus against the Neon Breach stuff that was going on there. Just time after time after time, the team that comes up with the new idea that's good against what everybody else is playing always does well. So now what I want to do is I actually want to build a comp to attack what I think the meta is going to be. And let's do it on Lotus because it's a new map in the pool and we've got a pretty well-defined meta from what we can see, at least in Tier 2 North America. So we've got lots of Viper, lots of Neon, lots of Omen, 100% Fade, and then quite a bit of Waylay and Vice, and then a little bit of other stuff. But we'll just look at these 6 agents as sort of like the core of what we think everybody's going to be playing in some sort of combination. And to do this, we're going to use a tool that I've been building. So I guess kind of hashtag ad for myself, but this is a public tool. It's at onetrick.gg. This is a free website that I made, which is meant to help people understand the agent meta. From a numbers and data analytics perspective. And so you can see that there's several different tabs and ways to analyze the agents. And we'll cover different pieces of this as we go throughout the rest of this video. So we'll come back to this tool in a second. We have to do a little bit of theory work first. At some point, I might be able to build this agent counters this agent into this website. I've been trying to figure that out. Haven't done it yet. But we have to actually just figure that out for ourselves to start. So if we look at this comp, one of the agents that really stands out to me at being very good against this is an agent that we should be very familiar with, and that is Yoru. Now, I know everybody thinks that Yoru's dead, but I think Yoru's demise has been a bit overstated. I think that Yoru, for the last year and a half, 2 years, has been playing the game on easy mode, very much like how playing originally Broken Jet was playing the game on easy mode. Anytime you have an agent that is super overpowered to the point where everybody has to learn it, everybody has to play it, it's probably because it makes the game easy to play. And now Yoru still has a very powerful toolkit, but you just have to be a little bit better at Yoru and a little bit better at understanding the game to use it effectively. So the reason that I think Yoru is good against these 6 agents is the following. He's always been good against Vice because of the ability to trigger the wall with the clone. He's always been good against smoke comps because you can flash into and out of smokes and through them. He's always been good at, countering Viper ult with his ult, and he's always been a very good opper. And that's one of the things that Fade kind of struggles against is the op, because other than the eye, The Prowler is really not that good at countering the op, and I think it's partially just because it's very easy to dodge the Prowler and just stay on an op line, and Yoru can do that as well. And then when it comes to double duelist, you need to be able to fight, you need to be able to retake, you need to be able to escape if they dive on you, and Yoru can do all of those things. So I think that Yoru is actually really, really well positioned to beat this comp, especially on a map like Lotus, where there's sort of like a proven track record of Yoru being very good. And so let's just start with Yoru. Let's go over here. Let's filter to Lotus, and let's see what Yoru's win rate is. So this is non-mirror win rate. We can see that Yoru, 51.2%. So that's above 50%. That's pretty good. His sample size is 2,600 rounds. You can see the breakdown per map. And this is only tier 1 data at the moment. There's a bunch of filters up here. So right now we're just looking at 2026 VCT, 2025 VCT, 2024 VCT, 2023 VCT. And we can actually turn these off if we want, just to get different data sets. And if we want an even bigger one, let's say that we don't trust this number of rounds, or there's an agent that doesn't have enough sample size, we can actually add all of tier 2. So this is like basically all of the VCL leagues. You can see all the VCL leagues from the last, 3.5 years, excluding China. And we can get a better data picture. So if we do that, we can see that Yoru falls down a little bit. This is a lot more games, 12,000 rounds down instead of 2,000. That means there's probably going to be worse players playing the character as well. But this is still a slightly positive sign, right? It's above 50%. It's a huge sample size to go off of. So we can still kind of assume that Yoru is at least solid on this map. So now that we've decided that Yoru is going to be the core of our comp that we want to build, we can actually go over here to the pair ranking section, and we can select Yoru in the search right here. And we can see that on Lotus, with tier 2 data on, what are the best pairs with Yoru on this map? And it's going to give you the top 15 pairs or the top 20 pairs. Brimstone, only 98 rounds, so we can kind of ignore that. It's not a very big sample size. Sova has a big sample size, positive. ISO, Clove, again, there's going to be a lot of Clove in the tier 2 data. So if you don't want to see Clove, or you want like only tier 1 data, you can turn the tier 2 data off, and you can see it changes what's good. This is really going to reflect the Breach Yoru Teho meta right here. So you can see lots of Breach, Teho, Raze. So again, you can kind of filter this for different patches depending on what you want to look at. And you can also look at what agents maybe don't pair that well with Yoru, at least according to the data. So we can look here. And, pretty small sample size here. Maybe we want to make this at least 150 rounds. So it's going to get rid of a lot of the kind of noisy pairs. And we can see that, okay, well, maybe we don't want to play him with Cypher. And again, we can kind of double check this by turning on the tier 2 data. You can see Cypher still a bit negative, but a little bit better. And so these are just some different filters that you can kind of look at and try to understand what the game is telling you based off of how teams have done with the agent. But from here, we can go to our comp builder, and let's go ahead and put Yoru in. We've got tier 2 data on. We put Yoru in. You can see the Lotus win rate for Yoru. And then we can start to make some decisions about what we want to play alongside him. So the Delta CSS here is the synergy of the agent with the agents that are in your comp. And so we can see that, okay, what agent increases the synergy the most? Well, Brimstone, but obviously the sample size is very small. Sova, okay, pretty big sample size, pretty good synergy with Yoru. And from there, now we can start making some decisions, right? So if we decide that Yoru is good and Sova has some of the best synergy with Yoru on Lotus and also fills that initiator role that we need. And honestly, if I look at this comp, Sova's pretty good against this as well, because you're going to need something to break the thorns, right? So having the ability to maybe shock dart the thorns and open up some areas of the map could be good. Sova's always been pretty good at least chipping people when they try to rush you down with the shock darts, retaking with the drone, the dart, stuff like that. We've got Yoru and we've got Sova. And now we need to build out the rest of our comp. And so we can come back to here and we can look at maybe different roles that we need. We need a sentinel, we need a controller, we might need another duelist or another initiator, depending on what direction we want to go. We can even ask this to complete a comp for us. So if we do that, it's going to suggest some other agents. Some of these might be a little bit crazy. And I can get into more specifics if you guys want. But basically, we look at this, you're going to see a global tag here. This just means that there's not enough data on the map for this pair of Harbor Deadlock to actually make a distinction off of 57 rounds. So what it's going to do is it's going to look at the global synergy of Harbor Deadlock, which has been pretty good even through a fairly small sample size. And it's just going to assume that they will be okay on this map because they've been okay on other maps. Now, we might not want to go with this comp exactly, but you can use the suggestion to kind of build out. So, I mean, Sage, Deadlock, I don't know about playing both of them. I mean, Double Senti could be good on this map. Certainly one of these should be pretty good against Neon and Waylay. And that's one thing that I actually want to talk about now is if Yoru is removed from the meta, that should mean that playing Sentinels is much better. And Sentinels are good against Neon, for sure. Everybody knows that. So playing a Sage or playing a Deadlock actually seems pretty good. So let's go ahead and at least put the Deadlock in there. We can see how this changes the synergy. You can see that Yoru Deadlock doesn't have the best synergy, but Sova Deadlock is pretty good. About the same sample size for both. We can also maybe look at Sage. Okay, these ones are going off the global rate, so this is maybe not the most useful data. Well, let's go ahead and just put Deadlock in there. Maybe we have a good Deadlock player and they want to play Deadlock. So we've got Yoru, Sova, Deadlock. We need a controller. Maybe we need 2 controllers. Let's say that we have a Smokes player that can only play Omen and Astra. So we can look at the 2 different ones and see what their synergy is like. Looks like Astra has pretty poor synergy with some of the agents that we're already playing. And maybe Omen has a little bit better. Yeah, it looks like Omen and Sova have good synergy together. Deadlock and Omen are okay. Yoru and Omen are average. So maybe we just go ahead and put the Omen in there. And so we can see here that probably with this comp, we want to add in maybe another Sentinel, maybe another controller. Maybe we just really want to play Viper on this map. We can look at how Viper affects the comp. Well, not the best synergy with Deadlock, which is a little unfortunate. So maybe we take the Deadlock out because we really want to play Viper. And we can see that, okay, well, Killjoy, pretty good synergy. That works well. Sage works pretty well also. Maybe we really value that stopping power of having the Sage or the Deadlock. And since Deadlock has worse synergy, we go with the Sage here. You can just kind of check again. And so just like this, you can build out a comp that specifically targets what we think the meta is going to be. And then we can check to see whether that comp has good synergy together. So let's just say that we go with this comp. Yoru, Sova, Omen, Viper, and Sage. You might not have the personnel to play it. You might not have the game plan to make it work. But you have some statistical data that says that it could work. And so this is a great way to get a little bit creative with what we're doing. We don't want to play the meta because we think that maybe the meta is bad. Maybe we don't have the players to play the Neon. Maybe we want to look at the game in a slightly different way. And so now we have a comp that makes some sense on paper. We've got agents that attack specific things that the meta does. We've got Sage to counter the Neon. We've got Yoru to counter the dive and to counter the Vice. We've got Sova to counter the Vice. We've got, our Smokes agents that we think are really good on the map. And so we don't have like a completely random and terrible idea. And now we just need to come up with a plan, right? How do we default with this comp? How do we actually take space? How do we play attack? How do we play defense? And then you can start trying things out and being like, well, does this work? Play some scrims with it. If it doesn't feel very good, then you can swap an agent out. You can swap to a different comp. Maybe you're like, well, the Sage doesn't work. Okay, well, we have some other options, right? Is Killjoy okay? Sure. Does this totally kill the idea of the comp? No, not necessarily. We just have to play a little bit differently. And all of the decisions that you made can be somewhat supported by numbers. And that's something that I like personally, is that I don't want to just trust what everybody else is doing. I don't want to just trust necessarily what I think is good at like a feeling level. I want some actual data behind it when I make decisions. And this is just something that I think you can do to get an advantage on your competition, regardless of what the meta is. So I don't want this video to get too long. If you want me to actually make a playbook to counter the meta on Lotus with this comp or some other comp, I will do that in another video. But yeah, go ahead and check out this tool. It's onetrick.gg. And basically, I think that you can use this sort of framework to approach attacking any meta with any agents on any team and have some pretty good results. So yeah, we'll see you next time.